Man, I love that song. Hey Bulldog by the Beatles. It's always been one of my favorites. Reminds me, I had this cheap little plastic record player when I was in high school. And of course, I had to take it in and show it off to everybody. And I remember being up on a field. We had was it like a May Day or June? It was where we had these, it's like an in-school festival. And I'm sitting up there in the grass on this upper field, which was for baseball. And I got this little record player there, and I'm playing the Beatles. Hey Bulldog is like the best song they ever did on the worst album they ever did. But I'm playing it, and I never thought about it's a sunny day, and the sun beats down on this 33 record that I spent all my money for, Beatles, of course, and it just warped the hell out of it and just ruined that album. It was very sad. That was actually the Let It Be album. It wasn't the Yellow Submarine album. But anyway, hopefully you can see me. It looks like the chat's working. Buenos dias. So maybe this week it's all going to function. Pardon me for my reminiscing, but I just love that song, and it just triggers a lot. For all of you out there, if you have not subscribed, please subscribe. Now, I know that there are many very good, loyal viewers that contribute to the channel in many different ways, and you're still not subscribed. So get your ass in gear and hit subscribe and that little bell. And here's why. Sometimes a good, consistent viewer maybe has been on this channel for 3 years, and he doesn't get a message. He doesn't get a notice that I'll put up on YouTube. There's a place where I can actually write a comment about something that's going on or a delay or something like that. And they don't get it. They don't get it because they're not subscribed. And so you miss some of the things. Anyway, I was asked a question of who do I watch on YouTube? And I'm just gonna give the list. But a quick rundown of what we're going to cover today. Today we're going to do an update on the Ecuador situation. I know a lot of you are interested in that. I was going to do one a couple days ago. I decided to wait until today just to see what was new. We're going to talk about the restaurant video. Number 3, I'm going to talk about visitors to Colombia. Number 4, I think is kind of interesting. It's the talk in Colombia. What's going on in social media. And since it pertains directly to gringos, I want to tell you about that. And then somewhat related, maybe a few words about Gringo Trap. So that's what we're going to cover today. My list of favorite YouTube channels. Now, I'm not going to tell you about the ones that I hit and miss. These are channels that I try to watch when they come out, or as close to it as possible. History Guy, just love the guy. Street Speed 717, God knows why I watch that channel, but I do. I'm kind of addicted to it. He's very smart. He puts them out just before midnight pretty much every day of the week except Sunday, and it's a good way to get somebody addicted. Drive Tribe, which is really owned by the come on, help me with this, Grand Touring. Oh my God. I tell you, my brain's turning to mush. The 3 English car guys that are just, I need to go get my brain examined. I can't believe I'm drawing a blank here. Aculite, I doubt there's any of you that know who that is, but he does online streaming of games. I just find him very entertaining, interesting. He's got a great voice. I think he's very talented, and he can do pretty much anything. Doug DeMuro does car reviews, Hoovie's Garage. Guy's just, I can kind of relate to him. He's always buying these piece of crap cars, but they're such a good deal, right? Casey Neistat, I know him, and so I try to watch him, keep up with it. PewDiePie, I watch him on a pretty regular basis. Rhett and Link, good mythical morning. You guys just crack me up. John Ward, very irreverent. It's primarily political satire. And Don't Walk, Run kind of fits in there. This guy just does a lot of homework. PragerU. Holly Hobbs, I think, is very interesting. His channel for several years was just about the Beatles. Now it's all kinds of different things. And Guga Foods, a guy who does, one is, he's got two channels, Guga Foods and Sous Vide Everything. And basically, he's just cooking up steaks in every way you can imagine and doing comparisons and weird things to them. And, I don't get a good steak that often. Here, I just can't afford to go very often to the place that has really good steak. And so it's just, it's like I'm eating in my mind. All right, so that's it for the YouTube channels. To the two people that keep asking me about that, there you go. Pew's Army, yeah. Subscribe, right? Okay. Ecuador update. The strike is over. The protesting and the violence is pretty much done for now. The president agreed to reinstate the gas subsidy. And the indigenous guy, who's really, I think he's kind of using this as his run for presidency. I mean, it's really elevated his stature. But he said that they'll negotiate an increase that'll be equitable. I don't even know what that means, because the increase that they had when they took the subsidy off was some of the cheapest gasoline in the Western Hemisphere. But, personal opinion. They are uncovering evidence that Correa was involved in this, that he took these groups that were out protesting, many of them with legitimate beliefs, and infiltrated those to basically seed chaos and destruction. It does turn out that a couple of those shootings were staged. That was my guess that I mentioned. So a lot of evidence is coming out. They've actually thrown a few people in jail over some of the crimes that they committed. And I don't mean the looting crimes, but, larger sedition type crimes. So what did this accomplish? Well, it stalled, it forestalled the increases that will be necessary. They absolutely have to be necessary. So it's put it off, but they lost from there's all kinds of different numbers. I read as much as $100 million in export and other kinds of businesses. People in Ecuador were somewhat trapped in their houses or in their communities. I know in Cuenca, I've got a number of friends, and they've got a problem still today getting tanks of gas. And you run your stove and maybe your dryer and different things, whatever you would run off your propane gas. They have deliveries come to your house, and they're these big tanks, not the giant tall ones, but they look like gas grill, only half again as high. And you can buy those tanks anywhere from $1.50, $2.50. Where I lived in Cuenca, I paid $2.50. It came to my door. Actually came by pretty much every morning, so you didn't even have to, think about it or remember it. If you have questions, be sure to preface it with 4 question marks and try to hold it till towards the end. I know they're having trouble getting the gas tanks. There's some gougers that are getting up to $10 for these tanks, which is actually a crime there, but things happen. it's left things in a far worse state, and all it's done is put off the problems. So while it's over for now, for the most part, repercussions of this are, it's not over. They're still going to have to address this. There's still going to be issues. They're coming up next year into in 21 to another presidential election, and of course politics is going to come into play. I think for the next couple years, at least for the next year, it's still going to be, I think there's going to be sporadic breakouts, and a lot of this is jockeying for power. So I don't think it's over, but for now it's over. It's a shame. It's a shame that, this is how people jockey and maneuver for power, but that's how the world works. Let me take a look at this. It's a question about Mexico, and be honest with you, well, I've been there half a dozen times, maybe more. I'm not a fan of the place, and I don't keep up with what goes on. I don't study it near. I have in the past, but it's not current. For Ecuador and Colombia, there's not a day that goes by when I'm not studying what's going on, when I'm not looking through the social media, when I'm not paying attention to the news or asking people their opinions about things. I'm pretty up on it. As a matter of fact, to toot my own horn, when Robert was here and we're driving around, and our driver is the chief homicide investigator. I think I have that right. Robert, if you're on, let me know. He's a big muckety muck here in Armenia. He's from Bogota, but he lives and works now in Armenia. And he was confirming everything I was saying about, the police presence, the amount of crime, the attitudes of people, thoughts and ideas. And here's a guy that this is his lifeblood. It's what he does every single day. And everything that I was saying about it, he verified. He vouched for it. It's not an it's not an accident. Yeah, I could speak English. It's not an accident, but it takes a lot of work, but it's a labor of love. I mean, I do that because I just crave information, and I don't trust or rely on national media sources any more than I ever did in the U.S. So I want to get to the heart of things and truly understand them so that they make sense. I think we all have this ability to discern if something's a little off in a story that you hear, and if you dig and find out firsthand, it feels complete. Anyway, I'm off track. So much for that. Ecuador kicked the can down the road. You're exactly right. Even though it's cliche, it's a very accurate way to say it. It's better than my ramblings. The restaurant video. That video was done on many requests, and I was told it was just so boring. And I agree that, the menus, going through page after page of the menus, I agree is very boring. I did it that way so that people could stop, pause it, and actually read the menu, see what was going on. Because going back, I don't know how long, a couple years probably, I show menus from time to time, but I keep getting asked the same things. Why don't you do a restaurant review? Can't you go and show the menu and give a good sense of, what the prices are, what the food is? And I thought I'd do that as I go along, but I think, people, they don't see all the videos. So in my head, it's like, well, I've shown that like half a dozen times, but if you didn't happen to see those videos, you think it hasn't been done and you want to see it. And of course, this is your channel as much as mine, and I try to accommodate. And so I intentionally put together that video and filmed the menu. Now, that aside, I thought the rest of it, I thought was pretty good. Now, it's unfortunate, the first one in Manizales, the Italian restaurant, I had some stunning video of that, and that unfortunately was all on the SD card debacle, and I lost all kinds of night light and night life in Manizales. The video that I had never taken before, always wanted to, and I had that opportunity, and I did it, and I had enough there for a couple videos, and it's just all gone, all lost, including video of the dinner that we had, which was spectacular. Mark picked up the tab for all of us that were there. Linda was there, Marcelo, his girlfriend Valentina, I was there, and he paid for all of it. Thank you, Mark. It was a really nice night. The restaurant was beautiful. The views were stunning. Had these huge picture windows, and it's in the Milan area of Manizales, which is a beautiful area. And it's got about 150 restaurants, primarily international restaurants, and pretty much all very high quality, high end restaurants at great low prices. And it's a restaurant scene that's unlike most anywhere. So I'm in this restaurant, I go through and I videoed all of this beautiful decor, and it's big, and it got lost. And anyway, so that's the way it was. And then I think it was there's a restaurant on the corner across from the supermarket, and I thought I'd gotten the outside of it, and I didn't, but I did get the supermarket across the street. So those of you that are here and you're looking for landmarks, I put that in for you. It's a restaurant called Cravings. It was really nice. It was upscale. You just got a really good feeling. The service was just spectacular. You almost had to chase them away from you. Robert took me to that restaurant, and we walked around that area. He's considering, coming to live here in a few years, and I think it's one of the best areas in town. And so I walked him around, there, and then we stopped there for lunch. It was quite good. Prices were high for Armenia, but in general, they weren't very high. For example, I had fish and chips, and I think the cost was $8. So for here, that's a lot. And then the last one was in Kalarka, which is a little town it just borders Armenia. It's right there. If you were to put distance, I think it's less than 2 miles from the center to the center. It's we're looking around there. This driver that we had, which was the crime or the chief homicide investigator for Armenia, I was looking for a driver for Robert, and so I asked my friend Javier. It's a family that I've known for a lot of years that I've talked about in the past. His daughter did an interview. She speaks some English. She teaches English. And so I asked him, can you or do you know somebody? And he couldn't. It was for a Saturday. But he says, well, I know a guy. He works in the building that I work in, which is the judicial building, where all the legal stuff happens here in Armenia. And so he puts me in touch with this gentleman and William, and I put him in touch with Robert, so they made their connection. So I went along with them. It originally wasn't planned that way, but I went along with him, mostly to kind of let William know what it was Robert was looking for, because I know the town pretty well. And I got to prove that out too, because one of the things Robert wanted to know as we're driving all over Armenia is this stratus thing. What barrios are stratus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6? I want to see the worst, and I know what the best of something looks like, but I'm more interested in let me see the worst, because that says a lot about a place. And so we drove through all these different places, and I got to show off because I could say, okay, that's a stratus 1, that's a stratus 3, that's a stratus, and I hit it every single time. I know this city pretty well, and it was fun for me to kind of show that off a little bit to Robert. It was almost like a game, you know. Of course, William being, you know, in the police force, he of course knows exactly what these places are and which ones are dangerous and why they're dangerous. And so, you know, we're having a little conversation, and I'm putting in my 2 cents, and that's when we got to talk about the police and attitudes, and a lot of very good information about Armenia and why it's particularly safe here as far as violent crime. It exists, but it's almost non-existent. So, you know, that was a fun drive. I really enjoyed that. And at the end of it, we ended up in Kalarka, emphasis on the and it was time for lunch, so we went to lunch. First, we went to see William's family, who had just moved there from Bogota a month before, and they got this chicken operation where they're growing and selling chickens. Very, very nice, very friendly. I mean, it's when is it not here? Yeah, I mean, it's even though they're from Bogota, you know, they fit in well here. And then we went to this place for lunch. Now you look at it, and it's like really old, and I don't know how old this building was, but it looked like it was something out of the Wild West. But it was fascinating. You talk about having character. This place had character in spades. It was just it was a trip. You know, creaky wooden floors and layers upon layers of places to put the tables. Well, you saw it in the video as I did a walkthrough. I didn't show everything, but I got it. You know, I showed the heart of it. Unfortunately, William's son had been riding in the car, got car sick, and kind of on the floor. Everybody took it in stride. It was no big deal. And then, as we're eating, and I showed some of the, you know, things about that. I had beef tongue, and it was the best. I love beef tongue, and it was you know, ribeye steak, beef tongue, and rib roast are like three of my favorite things in the world. And of course hamburgers, but the food was exceptionally good. It was so well done. There was so much care in the preparation of it. It just astounded me. I mean, and I'm not easily astounded. I mean, I'm a world traveler. I've been to Paris. You know, I lived in Japan. I lived in Tokyo for a while. I know good food, and this place was, man, it's like in the heart of nowhere in this whole rickety building, and it just blew me away. It was really, for me, it was that good. And then the guy comes up to, you know, play guitar, and William just starts singing along with him. He didn't know half of the words, but great voice. And it was a time that I'll remember for a long time. It was really enjoyable. It just kind of emphasized why I love it here so much, why I'm so happy here. There's hardly a day that goes by when I don't have joy in my heart. There are occasional, but it's just a great place. So for me, those parts of that video were pretty special. Granted, the menu kind of sucked. All right, let me see what we got here. Robert here, that sounds right to me. Okay, yeah. I like the menu, it's interesting. People are curious about prices, always. Opinion on Ibage. Did a video on Ibage. I would say if you're interested, definitely visit it and make your decision. Is that Colombian beef you like so much, or is it import? Well, my favorite beef that you can get here is, you know, we're going to do questions later, but we'll hit this one, is actually Angus USA beef. I mean, a lot of people that don't travel much, they look at the United States and they think the food is better everywhere else. They think the fruits and vegetables are better everywhere else. And I've traveled all over Asia, all over Europe, and I won't say for everything, but in general, as a whole, I think the food supply of the United States is about as good as anywhere in the world. I know some people are going, oh, no, no. It's like, well, the more you travel, the more you can appreciate it, because there's a lot of dreck out there. Um, there's a lack of standards in the world in general. Uh, Restaurants don't have the same desire to do something really well done. Beef, you can talk all you want about the health benefits of grass-fed beef. To me, grass-fed beef is not very good. It doesn't have the same marbling. I'll take grain any day of the week. And those health benefits actually don't exist. If you really study up on it, you're giving up a lot for practically nothing. So I don't know. Is that political? I don't intend it to be political. I know politics come into play on a lot of things like that, but hey, I love trees like the next guy. But I'll take grain-fed beef any day of the week. And you get it to countries like Ecuador, for example. It's all grass-fed, and so and the cows are always out working. They're working hard, toughening up those muscles, so there's no marbling. The meat is just tough as shoe leather. There's a reason it's the cheapest meat product in Ecuador when you go to the store. It's because it sucks. US, they put in such great care into making a good product. Now you could say, well, they irradiate and they use HMOs and they use steroids and da 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 da. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of that, that's used, but I also know that you have choices in the US where you're going to pay more, but you can get good, wholesome food just like always. Like tomatoes, these waxy tomatoes that have no flavor that you can get in the US. Right next to it, you can buy, they're double the price, but they taste like the tomatoes when you were a kid, when you just want to pick one off the vine and eat it like an apple. It was so delicious. So their choices, their availability, eggs there. You can get 99 cents a dozen that don't have much taste, or you can spend $3-4 for a dozen that taste like eggs are supposed to taste like. You come to places outside of the United States, and number one, you don't really have options. You get what you get, and you hope it's okay. In Ecuador, one of the big problems is the massive use of pesticides. They're actually illegal in most places of the world. And so you're eating that fruit or vegetable, you better scrub it really good or you can get sick. So there's just so much unknown in the food supply chain throughout the world. Now, here in Colombia, I've mentioned this before, I appreciate that they have standards, they have inspections. Those things do exist. They don't exist probably as strictly as they do in the US, but they do. Food in general, I've never had food poisoning here. It was a regular occurrence in Ecuador. To all your Ecuador viewers, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to insult you. Ecuador has its charm. I loved living there when I was there. It's a great place to visit, but truth is truth, and I'm not gonna hide something that many of us that live there know is to be true. I'm not making it up. I'm certainly not slamming the country. Um, every place has its good and bad. And here, I just struggle to find the bad, but that's Armenia, and I could slam all kinds of. I mean, look at that video I did about Kali. I mean, I kind of ripped it. I really upset some local people about Kali because a lot of people just love that place. I mean, they feel it to their bones, and I'm kind of tearing into it with the 4 things I hate about Kali. But truth is truth, and all those people that were slamming me for that video, none of them denied the 4 things that I complained about. They're saying, yeah, but you're making, well, to me, those things were evident and they were real issues. And so I talked about them. So I'm going to do the same wherever I go, including here. If something, turns up, I got no problem saying it. I actually look for things here. Okay. On the beef, we'll put it on a scale of Colombian beef in Colombia is here, and it's kind of hit and miss. Some of it is, none of it's as bad as it was in Ecuador, but some of it is very low quality, and some is very good quality. So you're here. A lot of it is grass fed, but you can. There's also grain fed here. So that's Colombia. Argentina is here. Argentina is a lot of grain fed. No, what happens a lot is they'll be grass fed. This is in the United States too. They're grass fed through a period of time, and then towards the end of their life cycle, that's when they get the grain. So much of their life is grass fed. And to be called grass fed, you only need to have 30% of their food chain be grass. So a lot of people, a lot of this advertising for grass fed, I mean, it's only 30%, or it can only be 30%. I'm talking in the US. So you really have to know what's going on. They play those kind of games. But the highest of the Colombian, Argentina, and the US beef that comes down here, I haven't had any that wasn't fantastic. So when you're comparing, you can tell the difference. Now, I will say, if you get a really good piece of Colombian beef, it's every bit as good as Argentina and almost as good as the US. But to what I have had, to my experience going back 2002, the US beef is just superior to the beef here, and I would say even the Argentinian beef, although there may be some boutique ranches there and here in Colombia that I just haven't had that could very well match as good as what you get the best out of the US. So, okay, visitors. Just want to talk a little bit about visitors coming here. I see a fair amount of people come down here to Armenia. A lot of them blame it on me. So sorry for that. Look at this. We're going on 4 months with no haircut. Any thoughts? I keep asking. Nobody really has anything to say. The girls I know here keep telling me don't cut it. But it's really starting to bother me. So visitors. So I've arranged to have several people set up as drivers. So if you come down here and you're looking for somebody to chauffeur you around on a tour, now on a day-to-day thing, I don't recommend it, although you can, but unless you need it, if you got your leg is hurt or something. But this would be for some particular thing that you want to do. Like Robert, he wanted to go around and visit all these barrios. Well, you're not going to do that in a taxi cab. So I've arranged to find several people with cars willing to drive. The pay kind of it ranges from about 80 to about 140,000 pesos for 4 hours of the bulk of the day. So that's what is that? $20 to $50, something like that, but includes the gas and the car and the driver. I've also arranged, I have several young ladies that are learning English that are willing to be guides. Now, I don't mean what I do, but if you come here, you really only need me for a day or two to really kind of show you, okay, this is how we can do this, that, and the other thing. This is what's important. Is I've got the perspective, for that, and the knowledge for it. And that's here, Manizales, wherever in this area. But once that's done, maybe you just kind of want to get out and explore on your own. I don't have time to usually have time to just stay with you for a week or two. But maybe you want to get out and explore and you just don't want to do it alone. Maybe your Spanish isn't that good. These girls are perfect for that. Very inexpensive. Pricing for that can run, maybe $10 or $20 for the day. Plus it'll cost you a lunch, $3 or whatever. Very inexpensive. It's good to have company, and if you're female, male, married couple, they're well suited. They're very pleasant. I know these people. I did the same thing in Cuenca. I would set people up to do this. Now, these drivers and guides, it's not like I've got this company and it goes through me and I get a cut of it. No, this is, I'll make the arrangement, but then you work with them directly. It's all on you. You pay them. I got nothing to do with it. I'm just setting it up because I know that many of you want that. It's good to have company to do those things. Even if I'm going to go and do something here, I like to go with somebody. You know, it's why not? One of the nice things about life is sharing it. Now, granted, I am a hermit, and I do like to have much of my time alone. But I'll tell you, the loneliest time, a little sidestep, a little story here. One of the loneliest times in my life was the first time I went to visit the Grand Canyon. And I was on a motorcycle, and I rode my motorcycle up, and I don't know Grand Canyon well enough. I've flown down in it before and got in trouble. But so I come up on a motorcycle, and I was right near a place where you could just kind of walk out and take a look at it. So I go up and I walk out and I look down in this canyon. And it's just, you know, it's just this gigantic ditch in the ground. But at that very moment that I walked up, seconds later, the sun had moved in a certain position and the sun's rays just splashed down this canyon. And so for a moment, I saw this gray and shadows and rock, and it just wasn't anything. And then the sun splashed down and it just exploded in yellows and reds and these colors. It was breathtaking. I've never seen anything like it. It was very unique. And the thing is, it's like you get so excited about, it's like, oh my God. And I turned to, it's like, I can't even share this moment with somebody. So there's downsides of being a loner. And so when you're going around and you're visiting things, you're going to these towns or you're seeing something interesting here, it's nice just to have somebody to share it, share those moments with. So, something to think about. My role is I can help you basically with orientation. Maybe find an apartment or put you in the right direction for visa, various signups, getting your cell phone hooked up. There are a few things to know about cell phone. Like you've got to get it registered here. You can get a SIM card and it'll work okay, but after a month or maybe 2 months, it'll stop working and then you have all kinds of problems. So there's certain things, it kind of, I can help you stay out of the potholes. And that's my function here. I have this idea. I'd like to know your thoughts. Now, I've got contributors. Many of you watching are contributors, and I thank you for that. I am contemplating this idea that on Google Hangouts, you can have up to, 6 or 10 or something people on a video chat. Well, I'm thinking that maybe every month I take the top 5 contributors and we have this group conversation. Now, what would be the advantage of that over this? Well, first of all, we can actually talk to each other. But second of all, in a narrow group like that, we could talk about some things that I can't really talk about in a public setting. So I'm contemplating that. Let me know what you think about it. It's easy for me to know who is at the end of a month, who the top contributor was. And so I can take those top 5 and do something, try to do something as a thank you for that. So your opinion on that. And if we did that, it would be any topic, any length, nothing would be off the table. Let's see. I thought it was a long, I'm not sure what that, not following you. Beef, no marble, no taste. Wagyu beef, yeah. Why are you wearing a toupee? Are you wearing a toupee? Yeah, I'm wearing a toupee. Yeah. I used to get asked that a lot in Cuenca. I don't understand why. My hair is baby fine. It's so thin I'm just always born like that. The upside is girls just love to do that. They always have their hands in my hair. Um, my hair. Oh, I thought it was long. Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. I mean, are you becoming famous in Armenia like the local press discovered you yet? The gringo face of America. No, I'm not famous, but I'm recognized actually by pretty much visitors or Facebook people or like that. Uh, yeah, I go out and at least once a week somebody recognizes me. But if you live in a community, you don't have to do anything like this, and you're still going to be recognized. So no, I'm not. I'm not YouTube famous. Just jealous. Screen course. Okay, little motorcycle race going on. Sounds like Indy cars. Okay, this I think you may find kind of interesting or not. Just like there's a wave, a topic that people get around the water cooler and, how cliche, right? And, talk about, you get the same thing in other countries. So here in Colombia, what are they talking about this month? Well, what they're talking about this month on YouTube, Facebook, is this poor gringo. And there's a variety of opinions, and a lot of it depends on where you live. Here in Armenia, there's a viewpoint. In Medellin, there's a different viewpoint. But it's this guy, and it's the same photo of this guy, a gringo, same photo that pops up. And then it'll be different photos of different girls, and usually it'll be a photo of him and some hot chick, scantily clad in a few. But they're different, and the stories will vary. The theme of the story in general, the first one I read and carries that theme, is here's this guy who was in the United States and he met up with somebody online and struck up a dating online, and at some point she started requesting money for whatever reason. And so he would send her money and help her. And in total, by the time the story ends, is he had sent her about 6 millones or 6 million pesos, or somewhere close to $2,000. And he had never met her. So what comes out of that, the nature of the story, is attitudes. And here in Armenia, I've talked to a number of people about it, but you can also go on the Facebook page for locals for Armenia, which is where these things are stored, and you can read the comments. And most of the comments here in Armenia are, this poor guy, this poor guy, it's like, here he was leading with his heart, and some heartless bitch, perro or perra, took advantage of him and used his feelings and emotions, and how despicable was she. That's primarily what you see here in Armenia. And then you go on the Medellin area and you see the same story, and the comments are a little bit different. You see some of those, well, it's like, it's not going to hurt him. He's got that kind of money. If he's stupid enough to do that, he gets what's, coming to him. Dar papaya. It's like a night and day thing. Hey, you want to be stupid? You get what you deserve. I got no sympathy for you. And here it's like, oh my God, how could somebody do that to another human being? It's such a dichotomy of opinions, in these two areas. And I didn't look in other areas, but this is all over social media right now. And I don't know who this guy is, but they're using his photo, and then they're telling a similar story as though it's somebody different. But I scour and I see him, and you just have to laugh. It's, the guy probably doesn't even exist, but they are kind of getting to that point. And it's it's interesting to see this attitude of you know, are gringos a target, or are they treated just like anybody else? And a lot of that depends where you are. Yeah, and a lot of it is why I love being here in Armenia, or close to it. Manizales comes in a close second when it comes to people. When it comes to city, Manizales is better. All right, hold on. Okay, interesting comments here. Says he's from Barranquilla, but what you need to understand, and you could be right, but this guy's picture and different story in different places. For example, there's a story here in Armenia that it happened here in Armenia, and it happened an Armenian girl, and he did all of these things here. Um, and that it was met online, as I told you. And the story that I told you is generally the story, but there's different variations. You've got one, could very well be true. I don't know what's true, and it really doesn't matter. What the point of me telling this is to get across the differences of attitudes about this kind of thing. It could be Joe Blow XYZ, it doesn't really matter from my standpoint. Makes no difference. I don't know the truth. I don't even care. What matters to me is how the people in this country are viewing a situation like that. So I got you. Could very well be right. Certainly wouldn't argue it. I have no idea. I think I've seen a total of 5 different versions of this story. And if you look in different towns, you're going to see them create that story. I'm sure I didn't look in Cali, but I'll bet you that if I go on Facebook for Cali, I'm going to find a version for there also. But good input. I appreciate that, but understand the point. And it kind of gets, my last thing here is this gringo trap. Whether you're male or female, and yes, there are females that come down here and want to also have a fulfilling, complete life. And it can be hard to do that unless you've got something wrong, physically, without having a sexual aspect to your life or an emotional aspect or both, or however it is for you. And and so the desire for that can be overwhelming to some people. They'll get online and they'll start talking to somebody, and here's a guy that's fat old ugly guy like me, and he gets online. He's this 23-year-old girl that's just beautiful with a perfect figure, and it's like, oh my god, it's like candy, and it and some people kind of get swept away with that. I'm a little too heartless for that. I'm more rational and objective, but I understand and I can appreciate, especially if you don't have much experience outside of the country, or if you lived in a community like in the United States where it's kind of isolated and everybody's knows everybody. It's a different world, and there's many places like where I come from in the United States where there's just a certain level of trust. I mean, I never locked my cars, I never locked my house or apartment. You didn't have to. And it wasn't until I moved out of that area when I learned they put locks on things for a reason. So you can have this naivete in the United States that you wouldn't have if you lived in other places. And so you've got this girl that's just beautiful and she's paying attention to you, and you can just imagine, it's like, oh my God, who wouldn't want to have that? And if you're a lady who wants to come down here and find some, I mean, who wouldn't want some 25-year-old stud, to go out in town with and be proud of, and have all this vitality, and you can kind of live vicariously through them. I mean, that's fun for everybody. I don't care, what breed you are, and it's easy to get caught up in that. But you've got to find a way to approach these things with eyes open. You've got to be able to detach yourself a little bit. Money should not be the core of it, should not be any part of an online relationship. And if it is, if it gets caught into it, it could be problematic. Now, I've always had this thing. I will not send money to anybody who I don't personally know. That's just a hard and fast rule. And some of these people, when I went through the dating thing, I ran into some where they just have these really good stories that just kind of pull at you, and you just want to do something, and you say, well, it's not that much. It's not, but the minute you start breaking that kind of rule is you don't know that it's true. You don't know these people. So don't fall into this gringo trap. And this trap exists in the United States by U.S. people also. It's not exclusive to Colombia or Ecuador or anywhere else. This is just a thing that happens. People, will try to take advantage of you to get your money. And so you want to be careful of that. Don't fall into it. I'll call it a gringo trap just because we're talking about here in Colombia, and almost all of almost 80% of my audience is from the U.S. So be smart about these things. And if you're having some kind of relationship online like that, you may want to send me an email, and if you want perspective, opinion, I'd be happy to share my opinion with you, what I think about it. I say this because there's a situation recently that I suspect is not really good for the guy. So anyway, that's all I have on that. If you have questions about anything that we talked about today or otherwise, or Colombia or Ecuador, now's the time. 4 question marks. Please ask them. I couldn't see if anybody did a contribution. Thank you so much for that. I have no idea today. I've got a kind of a glare going on. I'm having trouble. Well, I always have trouble reading the chat, but it's particularly bad today. So something just went up. I can't tell what it is, so I'm going to get really close to try to see. Okay, question. If I donate in stream, do you get most of the money? Yes, I get most of the money. But here's the thing. I mentioned this before. On YouTube, I get the least percentage of the money. On the other hand, what it does is it unlocks some other things for me for that month. So it's not the best way just from a sheer standpoint of how much do you get. I think I get 70 cents on the dollar, where if it's through Google Pay, I get 100% of it. If it's through GoFundMe, for example, I think I get something like 97% of it. Patreon, it's similar to that. So, there's very minor amounts. YouTube takes the biggest bite, but there are things that if I reach a threshold of $100, and I've got $80 to go this month, if I reach a certain threshold, isn't necessarily 100, but if I reach a certain threshold, it unlocks some other things, and it creates a consistency for me that has value, even though I lose some on it. So I don't know how better to explain it. I could probably show you if you were here, and I could show you how these things function. So yes, it's bad, but on the other hand, it's really good for me to get a certain amount through the pay here, this thing on the chat. So I try to get about $100 in this a month as a goal. Speak to the dental services. Well, I haven't had any here. The dental is like medical. As a matter of fact, if you get the your medical insurance, dental is included in that. And I have talked about this, and depending on what company you go with, is how much is included. Some will just have cleanings and some basic services. Some will do more than that. Some will do crowns and bridges and things like that. As far as the cost goes, well, the cost in general for pretty much everything here in this coffee region is about 25% of what it is in the US. And so, well, I haven't had dental services. I have no reason to believe it's going to be much different than that. If anybody, here has experience firsthand, I just, I guess I would have to go knock out a tooth and go in and see what it costs. I don't really know. I do know that it's considerably less than the US, like everything is. And if it holds true, then in Medellin, it's probably going to be a third to half of the cost in the US. And here in Armenia, it's going to be about 25% of the cost in the US. Yeah. Okay, do that. Yeah. No, I'm not gonna get sick or break a tooth just to get some information. Although, I did go with somebody to a clinic for you, and that whole episode, that video I did was a little awkward actually. To go with this girl who is having something done that was rather personal, and I mean but it's like I convinced her for the sake of other people, they need to know, and I'll do it tastefully, and I did. I think I handled pretty well, but the lengths I go through for you guys, I mean, you'd have to be here. It was pretty awkward, and I was trying to hide that little GoPro camera, and it was just not good. How did she do? She's fine. Got great service. Her cost was $80,000 for the first visit, $80,000 for the procedure, and then she had her medication. She had a ton of medication, and I don't understand it. There were antibiotics involved, which I know are dirt cheap. Like I mentioned in another thing about, I bought a 10-day course of amoxicillin for somebody. I was at the store. Hey, could you pick this up for me? And it was like, it wasn't even $2 for a 10-day course of amoxicillin, 500 milligrams each. So she got something much stronger, and then she got a pill that is kind of like if you do the probiotic yogurt after you take antibiotics, because you got to restore the good bacteria. Well, she actually had a prescription for some pills to do that. And then, I don't know, she had a bunch of things. And I know she kept pulling her money out, and it was like, I was starting to feel bad for her. I think it cost her something like $150,000, $50, 40 some dollars for all the medications, prescriptions that she got. I think she had a total of 4 or 5 different prescriptions, and some were antibiotic, but then she had other stuff that was for like a month's worth. And I didn't pry deeper to grill her on what's this and what's that. Sorry about that, but you if I'm ever going to go along again, I just can't be abusive about it. No, I did not need a prescription to buy those amoxicillin. I just walked up to the counter and I said, here, this is what I need, 500 milligram amoxicillin for 10 days. And they just handed it to me. And it was, I think, 5,000 pesos, $1.60, something like that. I heard another strike is planned in Ecuador on October 30th, but I can't find corroboration. Do you know anything? Probably see your answer later. I have to jump off live. Yes, there is a strike planned for October 30th. It's not about the gasoline prices, but this last one has people energized. A lot of people made money off of it. A lot of people just had fun. The whole thing is unfortunate, and one can lead to another. but they say the government, you know, backed down and gave some benefits to some of these groups, gave some political power. And so, you know, now you're going to see maybe some copycats, but there is one scheduled for the 30th. Let's hope it doesn't get infiltrated. That was the biggest problem. There were two problems. Was the indigenous groups didn't just spontaneously rise up. There was leadership with them that have an agenda for the indigenous, but they also have their agenda. And it's like they're using them. And then you had Correa with his group infiltrated. So you had these two groups that have political goals or political ends in mind. And then you have people, just regular people that are out there with the best of intentions and want the best for their country and for other people. Those aren't the people that were going around and smashing into stores and stealing TVs and burning down buildings that contained evidence of crimes or corruption. That was, you know, if that didn't speak to who was behind this, I don't know what did. When you've got this, what is it, 12-story building, I think, that houses all the records of uncovering corruption and crimes that took place in the regime before the one that's in power now, and that gets basically burnt to the ground. I mean, why that building of all the buildings in Quito? Okay, I'm off track. Any idea, can you trust the medications in the pharmacies here? Are they any good? Colombia has a huge pharmaceutical industry, and I have to take well, there's one medication I have to take, and I'm not going to tell you what it is. For a while, I had to take something that you do know is called, well, in the U.S. it's called Flomax. The generic name is Tomsulina or something like that. And I had to take that for a few months, and it's for enlarged prostate. And so I took that, and it kind of went away, and I don't have to take it anymore. But that, I don't know what it costs in the U.S. I think it's a common medication that a lot of you are probably familiar with. It costs me here, one time I got it, and it cost me for 30 days, 30 pills, which is one a day. And it cost, I'm trying to remember, I think it was about $15 for a month's supply. And another time I bought it, and it cost me almost $50. Depends on what company you went to. Both of them did the exact same thing. They both work, they both function. I have complete faith and confidence in the pharmaceuticals that come out of Colombia, because they're made to, basically it's the same as a US pharmaceutical company. They sell far beyond Colombia. I wouldn't be surprised if some of these will end up on the shelves in the United States as they're changing some of these laws about pharmaceuticals coming from outside the US. US pharmaceutical companies are outrageous in price. Here you can buy US pharmaceuticals, and you look at the prices, and it's like, why is it 10 times more than what I can get it for here in a Colombian pharmaceutical? So I don't worry about it. And it wasn't just those. There's a medication I have to take ongoing related to when I had cancer and that kind of thing. When I was in Ecuador, was similar priced as the U.S. I'm not sure. I don't remember who made it. It may have been a U.S. brand. And here, I get it for almost a third of the cost. So instead of the $60 a month that I was paying in Ecuador, here in Colombia, I'm paying about 20. So, yeah, I would completely trust it as long as it's coming out of the Colombia system. My blood pressure medicine is made in India. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't have it here, but again, this is beyond the scope of, there's so many different medications and it's I mean, I'm not an expert on that. I can just tell you what I did. I just wish the citizens of Ecuador well. I agree. And for the expats there, the big question that comes up is I'm planning a trip. Should I cancel the trip? Personally, I wouldn't. I tend to be kind of an adventurous person anyway, but right now I think you're perfectly fine. But you have to go, even if this hadn't happened and you didn't know anything about it, wasn't in the news, these things can break out anytime, anywhere. In the US, I was caught when I was 15 or 16 years old. I found myself in the middle of a race riot. Uh, Stumbled into it purely by accident. They were tearing the place up and setting cars on fire and rolling cars over. And um, uh, maybe I'll tell that story one day. How I got through without a scratch on me. But I mean, you just don't know when these things are going to explode. Anywhere in the world, something can happen. Look what's been going on in France over gasoline prices mostly. So I wouldn't stop my life for those things. Just be aware and take reasonable caution. Have yourself some backup plans. If you're living in Ecuador, just hunker down. I always had 3 bottles of gas and just would rotate them. You might want to consider that. They're about $45, $50 to get another bottle. If you only got one, that's silly. Have at least 2. Have a backup. If you run out, you can switch without having a hassle. They do deliver. There's no reason. I was reading some lady when she gets her gas in Cuenca that she walks and carries it. Well, they're really heavy. Um, and you don't need to. There's places, Austro Gas, they'll deliver to your house, and it's about the same money. It's $2.50 was delivered to me. So yeah, just make sure that you've got some supplies. They were running out of food. The food shelves were empty. The milk you can buy in these things that last for months. So just be prepared. Keep food on your shelves and be prepared for something to happen. And worst case is, it's like, how can you get out? Well, I mentioned, be sure the American Embassy, knows who you are and where you are. Just register where you live. If things go haywire, they'll send somebody. That's what they do. Spirit Airlines, butt of jokes. But how are they? Because they go from Fort Lauderdale to here directly to Armenia. And soon, this coming year, JetBlue will be doing a route to Armenia direct to, from what I understand. From what I read, they actually have a contract and it will begin next year, but there was something that was up in the air. So I don't know. I can't say 100%. As far as Spirit Airline goes, here's the thing. You just get no extras with them. And I haven't flown Spirit Airline. I've talked to a few people that have, and they say, well, the airplane is the airplane. The flight is the flight. Just don't expect to get, peanuts brought to you. And if you have more than a carry-on, you're going to pay extra. It's dirt cheap. And if you want services like you get with the other airlines, you're going to pay for it. So keep that in mind. You're not going to come down with 2 big bags without it costing you a fair amount of money to fly. Now, that may be worth it. It depends. You have to, weigh out the situations. But as far as flying them just itself, I would have no qualms. Like if I was going to fly out of Fort Lauderdale to here in Armenia, why not? I mean, to have a direct flight to Armenia, if this is where you're coming, why not take it? But just understand they're just dirt cheap. And that's what makes them the butt of jokes is because you have to pay for everything. I heard that I know it was a joke, but they're saying that you had to pay to get into the bathroom, like you do in these countries, at bus stations, and of course that's not true. But yeah, I hear the jokes. JetBlue coming from where? Do you know? I don't know. I didn't dig any deeper on it because it's quite a ways off and it wasn't 100% done deal. So I just, my life is pretty busy uh, preparing for these and finding other information. So that's one of those back burner things. If it were going to happen next month, I'd probably know all about it. But right now, I just know that it's, somewhere down the road, supposedly. You pay for the carry-ons also with Spirit. That's what I was talking about. Oh, I'm sorry. For the carry-ons, you also pay with Spirit. Well, I didn't realize that, but I mean, if you're going to get a ticket price that's going to be so cheap, they're going to make up for it somewhere. Anything to do with weight is directly related to the cost of that flight. I used to be a pilot a long time ago in another life, and weight is one of the most important things going on in what you're doing. And you need to know your weight in order to know the amount of fuel. Fuel is cost, it's expense. So if you carry on anything that's got weight, it's got an added expense to it. So they just have it broken down to, it's incremented out to you pay for your weight. Arriving to Pareda in a taxi to Armenia, um, is that a problem? It's not a problem, but I wouldn't take a taxi. Just go to the bus station and get on a bus. Take a taxi to the bus station, and then just get on the bus to Armenia. They leave like every 5 or 10 minutes. It's not hard. That's my opinion. Now, if you want to get in a taxi and drive, it's going to cost you a fair amount of money, and I don't know. It's your choice. I just have this thing after what I went through for those months, but I don't want to waste a dime. So maybe that's better for you. I cringe when I see money kind of wasted now after what I went through. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you. Thank you for the contribution, Jeffrey, I think. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Uh, so I think that's it. I've got a Bills game to go watch. Go Bills, 4-1. Maybe this will be the first time in 20 some years I didn't have to say there's always next year. But then again, I probably will have to. So, Hugh, yeah, I don't know. Hugh's not his actual name, but okay. That's it for today. I asked a few questions. Feel free to send me an email or post in comments any response or answers to those. And he is a very nice person, very, very nice person. And that's it for today. Enjoy your football. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your life. And I will see you later.